When you have an old car or truck, it's inevitable that eventually you or someone else is going to have to tune the thing. And if you want it to run right, you're probably going to have to tune it fairly often. I discovered that a wideband air-fuel ratio gauge is one of the best tools you can use to ensure that your truck or car is running properly. I'm going to do a full review of the one I have right now and talk to you about why I recommend getting one. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So like I said, I'm going to talk to you about a wideband air-fuel ratio gauge that I have in my old truck. Now recently the truck has been running really poorly and I think it needs a tune-up. So I've been messing with it and I thought, why not, talk to you about this gauge, because it's extremely helpful in telling you whether or not your engine is producing the proper air-fuel ratio. As you know, a combustible engine operates, off air and fuel. If you don't have that proper ratio between the two, it's not going to run properly and it's going to get terrible gas mileage. But before I go into the details, I'm going to hop inside the truck because it's windy out here and I want you to be able to hear me. So like I was saying, my C10 has been running really rough lately. It's been setting a lot. I haven't had a lot of time to drive it, and I think it needs a retune. I thought, why not, talk to you guys about my wideband air-fuel ratio gauge. Alright, so what is an air-fuel ratio gauge? Well, as you know, in order for your engine to operate properly, it needs the proper air-fuel ratio. That is, if it runs too lean, it won't run properly. If it runs too rich, it also doesn't run properly, and it wastes fuel. Now, not only can this cause, you to get poor engine performance and wasting fuel, it can also be dangerous to your engine. If you're running too lean, especially at high RPMs, it can cause detonation and you can do some serious damage. That's why it's critical to know whether your engine is tuned properly to where it is, producing the proper air-fuel ratio. Now, modern cars, as you know, use ECU units, and they largely self-tune themselves, depending on different environments and other factors. But even a modern car can definitely benefit from a wideband air-fuel ratio gauge, especially a modified one. But these old cars, they don't have any of that fancy ECU stuff to tell them, hey, the air's a little more dense here, you need more fuel, or vice versa. You have to do everything manually. Sure, you can recalibrate your carburetor, adjust the timing, etc., and then take the car for a drive, and if it sounds like it's running good, that's good enough. And that's how, a lot of people do it. Unfortunately, you can't rely on how the car feels or sounds completely to know whether or not it is actually running at its optimal condition. You won't always get a hesitation or, a noticeable difference if the engine is running lean or too rich, at least to an extent. That's why it's important to have one of these gauges that you can monitor, all the time to make sure you don't hit a lean, especially lean, because you don't want to blow your engine up. This is extra important for a modified engine that you're going to be wrapping, to high RPMs. So there are narrowband air-fuel ratio gauges as well. But the way I understand it is pretty much all they will do is tell you whether or not your engine is at that perfect air-fuel ratio that is considered best for operating conditions, which is I think around mid-14s. So I forgot to mention while I was out there, the higher the number on the gauge, the leaner you're running. Lower number means rich. So a 14, I'm thinking 14.7 is considered perfect at normal operating conditions, and then 12 is good for wide open throttle, maybe even high 11s. But of course that would be rich otherwise. And then anything above 14, a little ways above 14 is okay for fuel economy, but you'll probably lose, probably lose some power, but you don't want to go too lean, and you definitely don't want to be up there under full throttle. But a wideband air-fuel ratio gauge shows you all the way across the spectrum, anywhere from extremely rich to extremely lean. As you can see in this footage here, I'm driving down the road and my air-fuel ratio is around 14, which is really good for just normal cruising. That's pretty much where you want it. But when you hit the throttle, especially full throttle, you want that air-fuel ratio to go down to at least in the 12s. Anything higher than that, and you're potentially running the risk of running too lean. But now if you're running a 12 at a regular cruise, you're probably wasting fuel. It's probably spewing out the tailpipe a bit. In other words, it's not burning. So you're probably wondering how hard these things are to install and how much they cost. Well, they're not extremely difficult, but they do require, you to modify your exhaust a little bit. You have to drill a hole in the exhaust pipe and install an O2 sensor that comes with the gauge. As for the price, a wideband air-fuel ratio gauge is pretty expensive. I think the one I have, I paid around $200 for it. You may be able to get them slightly cheaper, I'm not sure. I'll try to link the one I have in the description. But I also forgot to mention, these things are fairly sophisticated. The one I have, and I think pretty much all of them, have this capability. You can plug these things in to your computer. They come with software and a plug in. You can plug them in and it'll actually show you your air-fuel ratio across a huge band from driving. So you can take it out, do a test run like you're on the track, and you can plug it in your computer and it'll show you on a graph of your air-fuel ratio across the board. This tells you if you have any lean spots or whatever, so you can adjust accordingly. So I do recommend getting one. If you want to make sure your engine is tuned to its absolute best capabilities, so you get the most power and fuel economy. But if you don't want to pay that much for that gauge, there's another gauge I recommend, which I recommend having it in addition to the air-fuel ratio gauge. But if you don't want to pay that much for it, I recommend getting a fuel pressure gauge that mounts on the outside of your car that you can monitor all the time while you're driving. This is really helpful when you're at full throttle because if your fuel pressure drops when you're at full throttle, you know that you got a problem and you want to get out of it immediately. So if you have the air-fuel ratio gauge, you can look at it and it'll tell you if you're running lean, so you know to get off the throttle. But if you don't have that, if you see your fuel pressure drop, it's kind of tells you the same thing. Of course, the air-fuel ratio gauge is going to tell you much more information because even if you do have fuel pressure, you may still have a lean problem. But if you do drop fuel pressure, you're definitely going to be running possibly very dangerous on your engine. So if you have an old car or truck, I highly recommend getting one of these gauges. I know it's expensive, but it really is extremely helpful and this provides a lot of really good data. But if you'd like to know more about other parts and accessories kind of like this that I have on this old truck, check out this playlist that I'll post over here of other videos that I've made similar to this one. And don't forget that they'll be here possibly any day, and it could even be, the reveal video could be dropping the next video. We'll just have to see when it comes in. But as always, hit that like button if you want to support the channel, and I'll see you next time.